Hey there, and welcome to the latest episode of the Mind Body Health Podcast with myself, Dave Sheahan. Spent the last 25 years educating, motivating, and I do hope inspiring you to be the best you that you can be and live the best life that you can have. Because again, it's there for you if you want to take it. It's just you have to take action. And we speak an awful lot in this podcast always about taking personal responsibility. And I know that's going to be a big thing that we'll speak about in this particular episode. And in this particular episode, I am really delighted to have the super inspiring Fiona Oakes here. And of course, Percy, very important, must mention Percy, is here on with us as well. They're sharing great insights about their journey. Fiona Oakes is definitely, without doubt, one of the most humble people I've ever met. And also, more importantly, an incredible human. And I stress the word human. And can't wait to talk to her here. She's going to add lots of value. And Fiona, thanks for giving up some time in your busy schedule to join us here at the Mind Body Health Podcast.
Lovely to be here. Thank you for having us. And it's my pleasure.
And I hope Percy's super excited now.
He's always super excited. He's always supercharged. I can't keep up with him.
Is that because all the jellies now or because he's on this podcast?
It's because he's on the podcast. No, it's because people do send him loads and loads of sweeties through the post. He's always coming back up the drive with a parcel as somebody sent him some new sweeties that they want him to try. So he's very, very spoiled little bear, but he gets sugar rushes. So he's got
a decent figure considering it. He must exercise. He must be running with you. Yeah.
He's wearing his vegan runner top, but he's so slim. It says eager runners and the N and the V around the back. It's very, very small.
But it's great to have you on as always. You do amazing work. You're someone, as you know, I've admired and respected for a long time. We've shared the stage at many events as well, and you do amazing work. And it's important that people hear what you're doing and also get inspired by what you're doing as well. And the great thing as well is about you is that, and this is where your humbleness is actually very powerful. In that, as you always stress, what you do, anyone can do. It's just a case of getting off your ass and doing it. And that's the key thing that people need to get out of it, get out of any message you give out, face-to-face events or like this on podcasts or videos or whatever it might be. For people who don't know you or maybe need a little reminder, just tell people a bit about yourself, your background, some of the feats you've achieved, because you've achieved some incredible things with huge adversity as well.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I'm just Fiona who cares for animals. That's how I care to think of myself. I don't put myself on any sort of pedestal. I run an animal sanctuary, which I started over 25 years ago. I've been vegan since I was 6 years old. I've got 4 world records running. I'm a 2:38 road marathon runner. And I've kind of moved on now to ultra stage events and just various events purely to promote veganism. The thing is, everything I do has got to have some connection back to animals. So whether it be being in the fire brigade retained, or I think it can bring veganism to a wider audience, or an audience that's not necessarily been exposed to my lifestyle choices in the past. It's always about being positive, proactive, and foremost peaceful. So I try to lead by example. And yeah, literally, I'm nothing special. Like I said, that is my message. If I can do it, certainly through adversity with some of the endurance stuff that I do, because I've got no kneecap on the right side. I've had multiple surgeries when I was a teenager. Was told I wouldn't walk again properly, let alone be able to run. But these are obstacles that actually I look at the bright side of things, and I think they've made me the person I am. They've given me that extra bit of motivation, that extra bit of inspiration, that extra bit of empathy. Regarding suffering. So I don't see them as bad things. I see them all as positives. And my main goal
turn them into positives. Like that's you turn them into positives.
If you're just going to dwell at home and hide under the duvet and think, oh, I've been so hard done to and I can't do things, it's not going to get you anywhere. Ultimately, it's just going to eat you up and you're going to become impotent to actually make a difference. My whole remit on life, the reason that I think we're put on this earth is to make it a better place when we leave it. To be able to lie at the end of your life and say, I did my best, and I think I'm hopefully leaving a better world than I came into. Certainly being able to influence the things around you.
And that's definitely how you live, in terms of the way you live and as a role model. And it's like even the way you're saying there, I'm not special. Like that's true to one degree, but in terms of the way people typically are leading their lives and the impact that they are potentially having, like you are very special. But that's why, like I said, it ties into your humbleness being an important message to people that you too can do this. You too can make a difference. You too can achieve what you want in life, have an impact on other people or animals or whatever your passion is. But it's the case you have to go there and put the work in. it's like you said, like, you've no kneecap, you're on the right side, is it? Right side?
Yeah, right
there. And taught you walking will be difficult, not to mind getting world records and doing all kinds of mad races around the world and crossing deserts and the Antarctic and all this. But you're proving again the power of the mindset and the power of having a passion and a big why. And again, for you, it's always been the animals.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, I'm not a talented runner. Certainly not a talented runner if you actually see me run. In fact, funny story is that when Keegan made the film about me, he did apparently keep sending little cuts of the film through for me to look at, and I simply wouldn't look at them. I mean, it's like, who wants to look at themselves on screen? Not me. Yeah. So when I arrived in Los Angeles for the premiere of the film, and Rich Roll was there and the audience was full, it wasn't full because of me and the film, it was full because Rich Roll was there and he was narrating it. I'm very well aware of that. Yeah. But he came over to me and he said, you must be very proud of yourself, and the film, it looks great, doesn't it? I said, don't know, I haven't seen it yet. And he was like, you haven't seen it, you've out, who wants to look at themselves on a small screen, but when I see a great big screen, it's like, oh no. So Percy and I were going to try the old when the credits started rolling at the beginning, we were going to drop something and then like an hour later find it. Oh damn, have I missed the film? But Rich wouldn't have that. He said, you've got to come sit next to me, you've got to watch this film. So okay, I'm now getting really freaked out. I'm thinking, I just do not want to go through this. It's just going to be horrible listening to me whining on, and it's just going to be dreadful. I thought then actually it can't be that bad, because actually Keegan, first and foremost, is a great filmmaker. I've got the spectacular backdrop of the desert and I've got all the gear on. How bad can I look? And then the first shot of me limping around like Quasimodo. I really don't look good. And I've had people at races say to me when I've turned up, and one guy said, I thought it was you, Fiona, but I couldn't be sure. And I said, oh, and he said, but when I saw you limping, I knew it was you. Oh, so I do limp when I never really thought about it, and that's the thing with I don't dwell on things. So, for instance, Paula Radcliffe once said, you don't want to go to the start line of a marathon knowing you're carrying an injury. And I've never gone to the start line of a marathon knowing I'm not carrying an injury. So you don't want to stand there thinking, oh, I hope my knee's going to be all right. So I just blank it out. A 2:38 in a marathon PB. I've run loads and loads of sub-3s, sub-250s. I've won loads of marathons and whatever, but I know that I am not a great talent in terms of running. I've just got a lot of self-discipline and done the training. I'm very blessed to have had a body which has allowed me to do the amount of training you need, because I think marathon running is an equation. I think it is literally. If you do the sessions week in, week out, you've got to have continuity and consistency with your training. If you taper right, if you don't get ill, you don't get injured, and you get good weather on the day, it's almost like investing money in a bank and withdrawing it on the day. You should, unless you get some horrendous problem, roughly know what you can run on the day. For me, the articulation of the marathon running is not about the results so much, that you've had the mental and physical determination and fortitude to get yourself to a position where you can present twice a year on the start lines and produce that. The journey,
the journey is again is a big important
part. The journey is almost the biggest part of marathon running. The race day is kind of the glory bit. That's the easy bit.
Like you should know you're going to be able to do it because you've already done it in training. That's like the fun part.
Many times. I mean, my training has been very, very difficult for me because I only took to running purely because I'd got the sanctuary like 25 years ago, made the dream become a reality. When it became a reality and I could finally rescue the kind of animals that I couldn't actually physically help without your own property, without your own land, I realized very, very quickly that you could rescue 440, you could even rescue 400, but it's billions out there that you can't touch, you can't address the constant terrible conditions they're in. So I kind of thought, well, I need to get away of promoting veganism. Initially, I started purely for the animals, but I've realized after the event how it's affecting the climate, my own health, the individual health of others, all that's come with it. But at the time, I did it for the animals. And Paula was doing so well in the marathon. It got the hashtags attached to it, toughest event on the athletics calendar, mentally and physically brutal. You've got to be all there. You've got to have loads and loads of, dig deep. You've really got to be a strong human being to do this event. So I thought about just competing in and hopefully completing a marathon would prove that as a vegan, a relatively long-term vegan at that time, it wouldn't be prohibitive doing anything. Never dreamt that 2 years later I would be literally standing next to Paula Radcliffe on the elite star of the London Marathon, getting the times and places that I was doing. But I only run to promote veganism. You think, well, even when I completed my first marathon, I got a little bit of interest in terms of, I decided that to train for a decent marathon, you've got to do a relatively structured and high intensity, time intensity program. It is hard.
It's a necessity, yeah.
So I kind of looked at it and thought, okay, is it worth it? You get a bit of free advertising for the sanctuary. We haven't got any budget for advertising. It promotes veganism. If you get an interview, you can talk about veganism. So it kind of is a good investment for the animals all round. The problem with it is that when I started to do relatively well in races, the one thing that they didn't want to talk about, we could talk about Fionas, the firefighting, sanctuary owning, not the veganism. So the idea then was to start the Vegan Runner Club back in 2004. And this was, the logic behind that is you're going to be standing on the start line of the elite start of the London Marathon with a handful of women, cameras going to be going across. You've got to wear an affiliated club vest. You can't just have something written on a t-shirt. So if we affiliate a club that's got vegan in the name, bingo. They can't ignore it. They can't make you take it off. They can't cover it up. They are very protective of advertising rights on these races. So they'll even come and measure the lettering on the affiliated club top to make sure it's the right size. Even on your socks, they measure the lettering. Sure. So that was the idea of literally running through the streets of London with a billboard, a sandwich board attached to your front and back, promoting the word vegan. People see it, as you know yourself when you're in races. You don't have your name so much on there, so they'll shout, come on, the vegan lady. Oh, and I could hear in the crowd, vegan, what vegan? Oh, don't we know somebody's vegan? And that was the whole idea.
More awareness, more exposure.
So I don't run for myself. I don't run for times, trophies or Garmins or prizes. But the biggest prize for me is just the potential awakenment of somebody in the crowd to see that, gosh, she's vegan. That's amazing. Let's find her. Let's look into this. Let's find out about this. Just proving that it could be done.
And that's what's important. Like for anything in life, anyone wants to achieve anything, whatever it is, or to make a difference, you have to have a big why. You have to have passion, something that's to light your fire. And it's like that. Like you've gone into things with injuries, as I said, more often than not. You've gone with you could call disability with the knee, but you've overcome them because your passion has far outweighed the discomfort that you're going through. And again, you show again the power again of our minds. Like our mind has such control over what we can get our bodies to do, no matter who you are, and we all have that potential. Like with your mind, had you an incredibly strong mindset even at a very young age, or when did it really start to get strong, let's call it?
Yeah, no, I've got a very, very strong mindset at an incredibly young age. Before I can even remember, I've got a sister just older than me, and my mum saw the difference immediately. In fact, my mum tells a story. Alice, my sister, is much more conventionally intelligent. She was what you would call clever at school. If I was ever at school, I was always a little girl with a tummy ache or making someone talk.
trying to get the hell home.
And we at junior school, Alison was in some classes above me, and my mum took me to school for the first day. It broke my mum's heart to take me to school. She knew it wasn't right for me. And after a couple of days, the lady, Mrs. Quartermain, she came to my mum and she said, well, you haven't got another Alison, let's put it like that.
what a thing to say.
My mum said, thank goodness for that. But now my mum always knew there was something different about me. Bearing in mind, to paint a picture of my background, I don't come from some bohemian, anything goes, jet set lifestyle or anything like that. Dad was a miner, very often on strike. Mum was a music teacher that turned to nursing later in life. It was very, very difficult for me because in my teenage years, my dad was on and off strike a lot. So we were very, very, what we conventionally call poor. And this was at a time before food banks or benefits. You got no money if you were on strike. And it was very, very hard. But my mum saw something different, didn't really understand it, but went with it because she knew I was I wouldn't say special, certainly nothing like she'd ever been exposed to. Very, very headstrong with regard to animals. She said, you know, I suppose family members like my Auntie Nancy, who had been brought up, she married somebody on a farm, so she'd been used to being around animals. And she could never understand when I was 2 or 3 years old, absolutely fearless around animals. You know, my sister would be screaming and running away. I would be just stoic.
In the middle of them,
I was very, very lucky. I say I went vegan when I was 6 years old, which is entirely the truth. I was vegetarian from, I say 3, but I never really wanted it.
Whenever you were conscious of basically what you're eating.
Didn't want it.
What was it, like 6 is an incredibly young age, like to, let's say, make that conscious decision to go vegan? Now, obviously, as you said, you know, as a child, you were quite different. You thought for yourself, you had your own mind. What was that spark then to just go vegan from veggie? Was it just you realised that?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it wasn't a conscious decision. It was more of a reaction. The whole thing about not eating meat was a reaction. It was revolting. The concept of it was revolting. And I started to ask my mum questions it wasn't just a light bulb moment at 6, right? I didn't even know what the word was. I don't want these products. Why do we take from animals?
You saw it as taking from animals, exploitation.
That's all I saw it as. Very, very lucky at the time. My mum, as I said, was a good pianist. She'd had a music teacher back at the grammar school she went to in the 1950s who was a vegan lady. And it was one of those very old-fashioned schools whereby the junior pupils had to serve lunch to the staff who sat on a top table at the front. And everybody just nudged themselves and said, you know, oh, Miss Ball's vegan, she's vegan, the vegan lady. It was weird. But my mum kept in contact with her because she was music teaching when she left school. She went to music teaching, music college. And she was able to articulate to my mum in adult terms what I was feeling as a child, the ethics. So she was kind of a mentor to my mum, because it was very difficult. When I started to have the surgeries as a teenager, I went into hospital a lot. Tricky for my mum, because my mum had gone nursing by that time. She was a student nurse. Veganism was... my mum was accused of child abuse for allowing me to be vegan, and veganism was aligned with an eating disorder, nothing more. It was just an eating disorder at that time. Very, very hard, but my mum has always known. She said the real cruelty involved would be to lie to Fiona and force Fiona, because that's, you don't do that to someone like this. It will cause resentment over years. I can't do it.
100%.
So I was very, very lucky in that my mum, in her own way, was very, very forward thinking and very headstrong in her own way towards her care,
especially back then. Back then, Fiona, especially, because being part of the norm, and the crowd was even more pressured.
And bearing in mind, my mum didn't even have the backing of my dad. Or my grandparents. It was very, very difficult, but my mum knew. I mean, my mum has always been at my side, always supported me, and she always does still. So as I say, then I started the sanctuary. It was always a dream, never thought it'd become a reality. It was a necessity, and it was something that was very, very hard worked for and very hard earned.
What did you start off with, Fiona, in terms of sanctuary? Like, you know, I know like how it started, it's difficult to start, but even first few animals, you know, what did the start look like, and then just paint a picture of what it's like now, because it's quite amazing.
The sanctuary, actually, when I say I started the sanctuary, I didn't start a sanctuary. I started a place of sanctuary for the animals I'd already rescued along the way. As with many people, you live in a domestic property and you just have what you can where you can. So some people might do rabbits because that's what they can look after. That's what they've got the facilities for. Percy's there always promoting his fluffy butts rescue. They do rabbits, you know, because that's what they can do. I've got little dogs and cats and chickens and goodness knows what. Actually, I was renting to start with, and the lady came round to tell me that she was selling the property, and could I move out? And she opened the door, and it was like, I forgot on the lease that you can't have animals, you know. So I managed to buy a small property myself, and from there you start rescuing within that property. Always felt very closely aligned to what we'll call animals in the exploitative industry of farming, but you can't help those animals unless you've got your own land. The only larger animals that you can feasibly really help at the time certainly was horses, because you've got livery yards and farms that will take horses. So I built up a menagerie of horses which were kept at a farm, and I was cycling into London, working very, very long hours in merchant banking, and then coming home and checking the horses on the way home. And I came home one evening and found that 7 horses came to me, 1 didn't, and it was Oscar, a retired racehorse. He found himself impaled on a fence at the farm. I later found out it was because the farmer had allowed people to go in the field and shoot rabbits when I was at work. Absolutely horrendous. Oscar went to the vet for 13 weeks, and it was almost like I've been on this precipice of got to do something, can't continue this model, but don't know how to get out of this model. And it was that Oscar's had this terrible injury, nearly lost him. His vet's bill at the time, this was 1996, was £12,000. Cannot continue just allowing other people to have charge of your animals while you just go to work night, day, morning, noon, and every weekend to pay for it. All the family clubbed together, and I tell the story of Auntie Nancy, elderly great aunt, who literally, when she knew there was even a chance of finding somewhere that I could be amongst the animals and live with them, she went over to a bed and she had a sock under it filled with a funeral money, £1,000, and she said to my mum, give it to Fiona and just try and make this happen. This is one chance to make this happen. Very, very fortunate, just bought a small place with a few acres, but that was the pivot. You can then, it's your own land, you can manage it, you can take in a few cows, pigs, but overwhelming, it's just grown and grown and grown from there. I've got rented land now that I'm very happy with, actually, the rented land. It's all manned on site, and it's...
How many animals now, Fiona? Roughly, I know it's hard to keep count.
500 odd, spread between all the sites. I've got up here mainly the larger animals, horses and cattle up here, and the new farm, and it's just grown and grown and grown from there. But it didn't start as a sanctuary. If people do write to me and say, how do you do what you've done? How can I start your... I haven't got that's leaflet 36, how to start a sanctuary.
Step by step.
It's literally been just grabbing any opportunity, creativity, going with the gut. I really haven't allowed my head to have much of an intervention in what I'm doing. When I look back, just really true belief and passion in what you're doing, and thinking, right, it's almost like if I was asked to climb Everest, it's like I'd have to say, how long have I got? And you've got to make it work around what you've got available to you. And also, I think not being inhibited and creating these boundaries that are reasons to not do it, finding opportunities to do it. That's been very, very important.
That's such an important thing. Like, that's the shift that people need in their mentality towards any dream or goal or anything to do in life, that instead of focusing on what if from a fear perspective, focus on the what if from a positive perspective, and see the positive outcome, and just do whatever you have to do to make it happen, because we can.
I think if there's been a what if from the fear perspective, for me, myself, it's the fear perspective of what if I don't? What if I can't? What if I don't do it? If I don't do it, then I don't want to go to my deathbed. It's selfish in a way, but I don't want to go to my deathbed thinking so many regrets. I didn't do this, I don't do that. I probably will anyway, because I always think that there's more I could do. But at the end of the day, I say, the situation, certainly for animals and promoting veganism, until the last few years has been terribly difficult. And it seemed hopeless. But I realised that I've been in a very, very fortunate position to be in a country that I've not been helpless. My hands haven't been tied to not being able to say things. There's been opportunities. And, I'm not trying. Some people think I'm almost like, I don't know if I'm modest or not, or whatever, but I really am not good at anything in terms of I've got to be creative in what I do. So for instance, I've just started a kind of blog thing with the old marathon running, just to show people how I've trained for things, and I have to concentrate on things that people don't necessarily think about. So with the diet, people go on a lot. I'm not going too far deep, but they'll say, what do you eat?
Well, they get a hell of a shock, I'd say.
It's not that, for me in a race, certainly, it's not about what you eat. To be tactful, it's what time it comes out, not just what time it goes in and what you eat. Because, for instance, you can be as fit as you like for a marathon, and if you get stomach cramps on the race, you're not going to run the time you want.
Exactly.
So it's little things that people don't necessarily think of that I've really concentrated on. But I joke a bit. I am not great at anything, but I try very, very hard, and I don't find barriers to reasons why I can't do it. I look for positives that I might be able to. Because I never started running.
But that modesty is what's been so powerful for you. And again, creating the vision that you've created now, the reality you have right now versus what it was at the very start. Because again, it's led you to constantly looking at how can I make things better? Looking at yourself, I can get better. I can always get better. I can do things better, and always looking at that. So you're always looking at solutions, as opposed to when people aren't modest, again, they basically get up their own ass and they're up in a cloud, and they're not going to get anywhere with that kind of mentality. Just like people who are just negative thinking they can't do things. So like that modesty has been like a superpower for you in reality.
Yeah, I mean, I think if people ask you what your strengths are my weaknesses. And I know I've got plenty, and my strengths are my lack of knowledge, but always wanting to learn more, rather than sitting there saying, oh, I'm a vegan guru, I know it all, I've been vegan forever. And I don't know anything. I'm going to make mistakes like everyone else. Best thing you can do from mistakes is learn from them, move on, make sure you don't make them again. It's like this idea with the old world today that, everything's going to be perfect all the time. It's not going to be perfect all the time. It's going to be rubbish most of the time.
Like there's a fear of making mistakes, which is ridiculous, because if you don't make mistakes, you can't learn.
Exactly. I know it's all like this idea with your social media that everything's got to be like, oh, lovely. You're going to look lovely all the time. You're going to be saying lovely things all the time. You're not. It's about life. It's about balance. It's like making a cake. You've got to have all the ingredients. And if you just shove one ingredient in, it's not going to work. So it's not wrong to feel down. It's not wrong to feel sad. It's not wrong to feel a bit of pain. It's not really things. These are normal parts of life, and they add to the balance of life and the makeup of you. And as I say, life's not going to be perfect. There are going to be perfect moments within life, and it's learning to recognize those perfect moments. So for me, going outside and just glancing up and see the animals grazing, or seeing a horse that's had colic a day or two before that's now back eating, the sun on your cheek, that's the perfect moment. That's about as good as it's going to get. But constantly been on this treadmill of, but if you had a bit more of this, or you did a bit more of that, if I looked a bit different, that's going nowhere. You're never going to be happy. You're never going to achieve anything.
Like that societal conditioning, again, the bar that's put out there for society, what we're supposed to aim for and what happiness means and all that, is like an unattainable bar, and it keeps going higher and higher. When people can get such joy for such simple things, like I said, a nice sunny day, sun on your face, be able to go out for a walk, go out for a run, being with someone you care about, whatever it might be. Like there's such simple pleasures and simple things. And this is where people really do need to start break from societal conditioning. And there's so much of it, because as I said, what we're supposed to see happiness is and successes is not the truth at all. And it's unattainable. And you're just setting up a life of misery. So we have to, again, tune into ourselves. What makes me happy? That's something that's really important. It's like for you, you've been out, even if you're doing a hard task and a dirty task, you're happy because you know that that's serving a huge purpose in the whole scheme of things on the sanctuary towards those animals' welfare and them being happy. And that gives you happiness.
I think also it's about learning to look at your blessings and not looking at the things that you haven't got, but being thankful for the things you have got. So I do get some pretty crappy tasks to do. It has to be said. Having said that, you could look and think, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to. But then you think, no, geez, I'm lucky to be able to do this. Look at the strength it takes to lift these bales or dig this trench or do, I'm so blessed to be able to do that. There are so many people out there that can't do that, would love to do that if they're given the opportunity. And so we joke about the running. Okay, sometimes I don't feel like doing a 2-hour run or getting on my treadmill and doing some speed work, but I've got legs that work. I've got bits and bobs that are all attached and they actually work, and that's huge. That's massive. That's a big win. We're winning already, and it's like people constantly looking at what they haven't got and thinking that if I did have that, I'd be happy. No, happiness starts from within and exudes outwards. It doesn't go out and come within. That's not how it works.
Gratitude, like that seems like all you're saying there, it's based on gratitude. Gratitude is powerful. And like that happiness is internal. You don't get it like from external sources.
You don't get it. I mean, it might embellish life, but it doesn't create that happiness. It might kind of add to it, but it doesn't create it. You've got to be you. And the biggest thing that I think is most overlooked in today's society is, especially with the old social media and everybody piling in on everything, know yourself. Until you know yourself, you can't possibly judge anyone else and their circumstances. And for me, I think especially during the last 2 years when we've been locked away and not really knowing what's going on, rather than getting involved in that side of things, I've used it rather than for go out, run, for contemplation rather than confrontation. Learning about myself, thinking about the reasons behind what I've done, the judgments, the decisions I've made, becoming acquainted with Fiona, because you're rushing through life and you're doing things, but you're not really analysing who you are. And as I say, learning who I am and why I've done things, and it's probably using it to my benefit.
Yeah, no, I think the last couple of years, that's been a huge opportunity that, some have taken and many haven't. And they get to know themselves more, because all of a sudden life was like a bloody hamster wheel that was going 100 miles per hour. Suddenly it stopped. They gave a huge opportunity to reflect and actually think, who am I? What do I want to do? I'm happy with my life right now. What makes me happy? When this thing starts again, in terms of the hamster wheel starts, okay, what am I happy to accept, not accept? What am I going to do? And then change the course of their lives and make positive changes. And for a certain section of society, they have done that, and they're far more enriched. They know themselves better. They're more authentic within themselves. And as you said, know themselves more, and they are going to generate more happiness within, which is the most important thing.
I think happiness within creates happiness beyond. And you carry an aura around you with you of goodness, or of genuine I don't know, gratitude.
It's like an aura, an energy. Because like, if to certain people, like we all, if we're around, even before we've met them, we feel good about meeting them, because we know we're going to be uplifted. And when we're with them, as said, it's like this aura brings us up, just like the people who take us down, which again, even the thought of going to be with some people, we feel down already. And when we're close to them, our energy is zapped out of us completely and feel low. So this is why it's important for us to surround ourselves with people who are like-minded and uplift us, and then who we can uplift. And, it's like, again, it's like love is the most powerful force that there is. So it's like living in a world, in a bubble, where love is the main thing. And to give that out, so the energy you're giving out is the energy you're going to get back as well.
Exactly. I mean, negativity creates more negativity. You've got to dilute it with positivity and love. You've got to.
Because, like you're saying, even there with races, going to line and go, this niggle, I hope this niggle doesn't stop me. Well, during the race, guarantee that niggle's going to start feeling pretty damn sore. And you focus, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And it's going to be a hard bloody race. As opposed to focus on what you can actually do, the fact you're actually on the starting line, you can actually run, and you get through it then.
Well, that's it. And that's also like with my training, people do say that I train very, very hard. I do train hard, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I've never had a coach, because I can't. Back in the day, before you could kind of Google, sub 3-hour marathon training program, people were not willing to invest their time in me because of the diet. I mean, the vegan diet was considered very, very prohibitive and detrimental to excellence in sport, especially extreme endurance. So I kind of had to go it alone. But I don't think about that anymore. I just think, I'll just get on with it, and I don't care what people say, and I don't care what people think about my running or me, or, as long as I'm doing the job I want to do and I'm doing it honestly, that's all it's about.
That's really knowing yourself again, and it's like getting to the point, be authentic, and literally, like, as I often say, if you truly don't give a shit about what other people think of you and what you're doing, it's like a superpower, because all that matters, you're being true to yourself, and then do what serves you, and then that in turn will help whatever your mission or cause is.
Yeah, I mean, but with the running, it's very raw, it's pure, it's honest, it's truthful, and I say, if you don't train hard, you won't race hard. I mean, you won't be able to suddenly, can't pitter-patter around in training and then suddenly expect to turn up at a race and knock out your best effort. You've got to learn to experience and cope with pain and find ways around it. So you can't simulate 26.2 miles every day. You can't run marathon pace every day to go, but there's little ways of, like recovery runs or evening runs, double sessions, where the second session feels like the last 4 miles of a marathon. So you get that simulated mental feeling of hardship without actually having done it. If I'm running a road marathon, I tend to roughly do my long runs at the time of the marathon, which usually are in the morning on a Sunday, just so your body kind of kicks in and says, oh, this is really hard, but it's only a little bit harder than what I normally do in training. So actually I can get my head in gear, and when it's over, so I haven't got to do any more. So you can kind of trick your mind into accepting this pain. But you can't, if you don't do it regularly, if you don't train in that way, you're not going to be able to probably do it in a race. But yeah, you find little ways, and that's down to the brain of actually finding ways around what you're doing to achieve the goal. I am very lucky, not lucky in the reason, because I don't want to be promoting veganism, because I want the world to be vegan. I don't want to be talking about animal exploitation, because I don't want there to be any, if you see what I mean. But it gives you that extra incentive. It's for me personally, it's far easier to do something for someone else than to do it for myself. I'm just not so bothered if it's for me, I don't care. But if I'm doing it and I think I'm helping someone else, then I'll go that extra mile, literally. And I've had lots of experiences of that within races. I had it in 2014 in the Marathon des Sables when I was in a top position. And there was a guy in my tent called Mike Julien, and he had leukemia. And he was really struggling, but he was out there for a reason. And his reason was to show others that were also suffering that this illness did not need to define you. It wasn't defining him. And if he could do something as extreme as Marathon des Sables, having with this condition, it meant that it wasn't end game for others out there suffering. So he was doing it to inspire others. But unfortunately, he was really, really struggling. And after day 2, he came back late at cut-off time. I mean, for those who don't know, cut-off in these races tends to be about after 11 hours each stage. I'd probably be finishing in 4. He was coming back on cut-off. And he was very, very upset. And he said he was packing up. And I said, but you can't, Mike. He said, I can't get through it. I can't do another day knowing that we've got the long march or the long stage the day after. I'm not going to get through it. He's on chemotherapy. And I kind of stepped up, Percy did, it was his idea. He's very compassionate little bit, and said, look, if you can get through tomorrow, the incentive is going to be that you're going to have someone to mentor you around the long stage. You're not going to be out there alone in the desert, frightened, and it's going to be me, because I'm going to do it with you. And he said, but you're going to chuck your own race away. I said, that's no matter. We're not here about, I mean, I've never run a marathon and raced anybody. I've never said, oh, she's going well, I'll just up the pace.
Yeah.
It's like,
you're not going for place. You're going for the impact, potential impact.
Yeah, compassion over competition. It's always more important. So Mike did come back the next day. I must admit, Percy's going to be very cheeky now. The next day was just under a marathon. Got back, same sort of position, went to bed. Heard some clapping at the finish line, got up to see, the last one has come in. And it was Mike. Threw himself into my arms. Does your offer stand for tomorrow? Percy went, no. I'm sorry, I changed my mind. We're in 4th place overall. Seriously. And I wouldn't change a minute of it. Yeah, I took the race away. Did well in the marathon the following day, but too far gone because we had a hell of a time out there. But it's what it's all about for me, helping others. And it's a greater reward than just some medal.
There's no greater satisfaction than helping others. Like there is no greater satisfaction. So even the simple things like even acknowledging people when you're out and about and even smiling at someone and something like that can make a huge impact on their day. They could be having the shittiest day ever, bad news, whatever. They might feel lonely, they might feel excluded, and just you acknowledging their existence can be something small. So we should be living lives like that. It's like compassionate and empathetic. And
realizing that every action we make, the impact of it to others, and it does matter. So even things that might be very superficial to us are very, very meaningful to all other people. So during COVID, during the month of December, it's only December as well. I look forward to December coming because I can go out running with my elf ears on.
Oh yeah.
And I've got one of those hats with the elf ears on. So I go out running with my elf ears on, and it makes people smile. Either that or just laughing at me. So anyway, I was out running through the village of Bradwell through December in my elf ears, and I had to go to the post office after I'd done the run. And I went into the post office and I'm posting this parcel, and a lady said to me, "You're the lady in the elf ears." Yes, I said, I don't think there's two of us.
Clearly.
And she said, you run past my mum's cottage every day and you wave at her. I said, yeah, there is a lady who sits in a cottage. I wave at her. And she said, do you know it really, because it's during COVID when there was no contact,
Yeah.
She said, sometimes you're the only pedestrian she sees, and she really looks, and when I ring her, she'll say, I saw the lady with the elf ears. So I said, no, I'll be out, because this lady couldn't see her mother on Christmas Day. So anyway, Christmas Day comes, right? And Percy has the brainwave. He's full of them. We'll run 50 mile today, Fiona.
Is that all?
50 mile. So we got up and we ran 25 mile, and then we did our 25 mile later on. We just split it. And then Percy remembered, we haven't run, we run the seawall. We didn't go through the Bradwell village.
Oh, I didn't pass the lady.
Yeah, so we had to get back on our elbows and go back. And I'll tell you, she must have thought there was something very wrong with her running at that point because it was like getting warmer. But I had to go because I couldn't bear the thought that she'd probably be waiting to wave. Yeah. And she was sitting there, waving, and that means a lot.
Yeah, that's what matters. But like that goes back to like what I was saying, even at the start when I just introduced you, again, as a human. And it's not that you're special, like you're special definitely in terms of the way you live and what you do and like little stories like that. but what you're doing is what everyone should be doing and can be doing anyway. And this is like the mess. People need to see what you're doing and go, hold on, I should be doing that, or I need to do more of that, or, you know, that's inspiring for me. Because what you're doing, everyone else can do. Just acknowledging someone, like, of course, during the last few years, especially, someone who sees nobody and suddenly someone walks past or runs past and waves at them, it means so much. Like I've stressed to my son for many years, or to people, like, just smile at people, acknowledge them, nod at them, whatever. Even if they don't acknowledge you back, it doesn't matter. You're doing it for the potential benefit it could be for them. You don't know what they're going through.
And it's like everything is all relative. It's like you're saying, it's all relative. So if people kind of write and say, you know, I could never run that pace in a marathon, you don't have to. Just being out there, just being doing anything, it doesn't matter. It's just relative. My pace is crap when you can look at somebody else, you know,
exactly.
Like Elliot Kipchoge, it's rubbish. It's relative to, and it's all, we're all equal. It's not like, oh, I'm quicker than you and I'm better than you. It's not about that at all. It's about, it's just, it doesn't matter. And I'm not asking everybody, or even suggesting that everybody would want to live a life where it doesn't matter that you don't go vegan till if you're 80. I don't care. You find that awakening. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying go and run a marathon. I'm not saying break world records, have an animal sanctuary, be a fight. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that any little thing, you don't know the impact these things can make. Just the conversations or fleeting moments, you just don't know. But don't let that prevent you from doing it.
Live a life of the right intention. You know, that's the thing, like, the right intention. Be a good person, be a good, again, human. That's
and it's not quantifiable in terms of you get £5 for a wave and you get £10 for a conversation. It's not like that at all.
But that's the word. If we did, it would happen more. That's the sad thing about the world we live in. If there was actually monetary values on giving a wave or a smile, people would bloody always do it. And this where, again, the shift is badly needed. But again, people to actually become more human instead of being bloody robotics who literally have to always get something back to do something. So few people will do something without an expectation of something back, which is such a terrible way to be. And that's like such a poison in the world right now that needs to be getting eradicated. But every single person has the potential to live lives that are actually leading with love and doing things that are not solely to get something back. It's bad energy anyway.
Well, it's like, it's absolutely so true, because I had a conversation with someone and they were talking about Elon Musk, always the richest man in the world, you know, if I was the richest man in the world. And I was saying, depends what his currency is. And she'd go, oh, dollars, you know, and I'm thinking, no, you really just don't get what I'm saying. It could be the poorest physical, you know, actual material things and the richest person in the world if your currency was love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what people can't see beyond the currency of the pound. And, you know, I think this is what I tried to articulate for many, many years over these desert multi-stage races. And certainly they've become a lot more popular now. When I started doing them, people couldn't get the concept into their brain. And I was trying to explain, you know, you're running along, and if somebody stopped and offered you a large diamond, you'd look at it and you'd say, no, what purpose does a large diamond serve in the middle of a desert? And they'd say, oh, it's a big diamond though, Fiona, it's very heavy. So I don't want it then because I've got to carry it. A drop of water or something like that physically makes a difference. These things are what really, really matter. The material things, you know, they're just embellishments. And, you know, you jumping forward to that, it's certainly articulated more with my reality that animals and humans are no different. Food, water, shelter, peace, comfort, no fear, no pain. They're the things that matter. Beyond that, it really doesn't matter. There's no significance to whatever, peace of mind. That they're the things that you're blessed to have, because without that, life's nothing. And as I say, I think I've been most happiest when I've literally had least to worry about in terms of physical things. Man, you do start panicking. I don't know how many times you can unpack a 20-litre rucksack and look for a painkiller or something like that. But no, literally, everything's so precious. These races, I would never be so cavalier with words to suggest that I've in any way ever suffered in any of these races. Yes, I've suffered in terms of I'm pushing myself to finish a race so I can prove a point, but at any point I can stop and say, you know, I want to go back to a 5-star hotel. Some people and animals can't do that. They're stuck in that situation, in that hellhole forever, you know. And you know, I think, you know, what would you do? I mean, if you'd literally got nothing, You literally, everything was just stripped from you. Got nothing. You just got to manage. You got no purpose, no hope, because hope is what really matters. That you've got hope of making a change. And we even take that from animals and people. They haven't got anything. And so, you know, the best you can do is use the races or whatever you're doing in life as a life enhancing experience to come back and hopefully create change in your own circle, and hopefully that satellites out to others. I mean, I've come back from races and I've stood in the kitchen staring at the tap thinking, what is this miracle I see before me? Water is coming out, you know, and water, I mean, obviously clean water, drinking water is the most precious thing when you haven't got any. But very few people are ever going to be in a position until it's too late that they haven't got any, and they realize how important it is. And so throughout the COVID pandemic crisis that we've had, you know, the healthcare workers, those things have been at the forefront. But for me, it's also expanding on that. Keeping the healthy people healthy has been very important, and those that do it, clean water, sanitation, removal of, you know, waste, they're the very important things that we don't always look upon as important until they're not available to us.
That's like the water. Like the water is the most important thing. Like we're 75% water. We need water. Without water, you're going to die within 7 days typically. You know, and this where we need to get back to being grateful for some of the small things. Like you said, a tap is literally a miracle. Yet people won't see it as that. You know, they want to know what kind of fancy tap they can have. It's like,
you know, oh, don't drink Perrier, it's got to be Evian, or it's not, I don't drink fruit flavored water, it's got to be sparkling, it's got to be still, it's got to be from this spot. No, just give it me, I'll drink it. I drink my wee if I could. You know, at the end of the day.
Exactly. But this is why I've always said, I think one of the most valuable things for anyone, they should do it in every school, is that they're brought to somewhere that like that is very, very underprivileged, underdeveloped, where you see in those people, they literally have nothing, but they actually have everything. You know, where to walk miles and miles and miles just to get a container of water for the day. And that's like a day's journey. But a lot of these people actually have everything because they don't want for any of these material things that we have. And that would be an experience that every person should have, because the problem with the world is now it's so divided that it's like that's over there and we don't want to even look at it. We don't want to know it. We just pay no attention and deal with first world problems that aren't bloody problems whatsoever.
They're not problems. They're just not problems at all. And you're right. I mean, and I think it's very important if you walk amongst these people to come back, and the least you can do for them is have that at the forefront of your mind all the time. So, you know, like I say, with people ask me, what do you eat? What's this one meal a day? I only eat one meal a day. And I'd say rather than focusing on what's actually in the meal, focus on the other things. I eat a meal that's prepared with love by my mum still. I eat it in a situation where I haven't got to panic about where the next meal's come from or the previous meal. I'm not living in a war zone where there's rockets flying overhead and I'm worried about my own safety. These are all very, very important things that are very often overlooked by people. And until they're taken from them, they don't appreciate them. So I'm always very, very aware of not just that one thing, that tunnel vision, one thing, the whole picture. And that's what people very, very often get lost in. Also, I'm very, very, if there's a problem, I'm looking for solutions all the time myself. Because being in charge of your own life and in your own body is very, very important to me. And it's very, very liberating as well to think I'm master of my own destiny, if you like. And so many people today, a problem comes up and they expect someone to come along and fix it for them. How would you be in a world that wasn't going to happen? You'd have to learn, and people lost that ability. They've lost the ability.
Because that's thing, like myself, like you're very much about taking personal responsibility both in yourself and in terms of the way people should be. And like, this is again a message that needs to be put out there more and more and more, because less and less people take personal responsibility and they do shelve the responsibility onto someone else, and to get whatever it might be, whatever the solution to whatever it is, when we all have it within ourselves to control what's going on in our lives, and even things that we can't control, we control how we react to them. So there's always a solution for every situation, and we need to again get back to focus on how we can deal with it and take personal responsibility, because we always have a choice every single situation. There is no actual valid excuses for anything. We just have to again push on and work around things, through them, under them, over them, whatever. There's always a way around.
Well, I know, coming back to the running, I mean, it's absolutely true. I mean, people cannot get it into their heads that I don't have a Strava, I don't have a Garmin, don't have a pulse monitor. I haven't even got a watch at the minute because my old Timex Ironman battery's gone. So I'm looking for, but you know, they can't get it into their head that I run without any of those things. And I judge my own pace and I do it very well. And I kind of say, well, think about it. You've got the most sophisticated computer known to man. about your person. Well, I haven't. Mine's a bit dodgy, but it's, it's all right.
It works.
So yeah, it just functions sometimes. But learn to use it rather than relying on something that actually doesn't know the whole picture. It doesn't know what kind of day you've had. It doesn't know if you've got a cold coming on. It doesn't know any of those things. Doesn't know if you're stressed. Bleeping away on your wrist. I need my Strava to tell me how. I need to look at it. In races, you got people looking at. I'd probably trip up and break my leg or something if I was doing that. Just rely on yourself and what you've got available to you, and it's far more accurate probably if you learn to use it, and so much more liberating if you learn to use it too.
Yeah. Your body talks to you all the time if you just tune into it. It's like with illness, with pain, with emotional stress, with everything that can happen. Your body, like if someone's going through a lot of emotional stress, they'll probably feel pains, maybe their spine, their shoulders, their back, or something. Like there's something, just like if you have an injury, just like if you're hungry, just like if you're thirsty, everything. Your body will talk to you whenever something's wrong. Just like people get sick. Totally.
And we ask someone else to be an expert on the body you're living in. How does that make sense? You should know your own body the best. Okay, you might need advice, embellishments along the way. We're not saying don't go, but learn to listen and diagnose yourself and analyze, well, why would I be feeling like that? Or what's likely to be causing that? Rather than the minute flagging up emergency, somebody else needs to step in.
Yeah.
Kind of having that ability to step in for yourself, being your own safety net to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of the way that I kind of live my life.
There's a reason for everything. There's always a reason. So again, whether it be pain or whatever aging is happening with your body, there's a reason. So it's find the reason for it and look for that versus, again, as you said, shelving off responsibility. Here, you find something for me. You tell me how to fix this.
You tell me what's wrong with me. But it's, people don't seem to want to do that anymore. They more and more, there's an app for everything. And it kind of seems strange to me. It's like I've got my running machine. I do speed work on the running machine because my knee is so bad. I think probably the best place to do speed work would be on a track with a group. I don't run with a group anyway. I'm quite isolated in the country. It would take too long to get to a running club, and the bends of the track, the constant bends of the track, don't suit my knee. So I started always do my speed work on a treadmill, and my treadmill broke. And it was like, oh my Lord in heaven. It was past even having a service because it's so old. These machines had been shipped out to Eastern Europe because they were just so old. So old. It's like a tank. It probably is like a tank, my own machine. So anyway, I tried to find someone to fix it, couldn't even get the parts. And I looked on the internet and I found another one for sale. I couldn't believe it, technically run race. And I contacted the guy, it was in Manchester, and he said, yeah, I've got it for sale, very cheap. I said, but surely you can't be selling this running machine for £300. It does a 25% incline, a 5% decline, and its top speed is 25 kilometres per hour.
£300?
Yeah. And do you know why I couldn't sell it? He said, because everyone wants the gadgets.
Oh, yeah, they want to fancy.
They want the gadgets. It doesn't do anything like that. It's got no memory facility on it. Once you've done your session, you don't analyze it. It says, 10.8 kilometers, 600 calories burned. You get that for about 10 seconds, then it's gone.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. So I've got that treadmill now and replaced it. But everybody wants a gadget to bleep at them. Everybody wants somebody to shout at them. Everybody wants something like that. When I've probably the greatest strength I've had is I've been able to shout and bleep at myself. But I suppose behind that shouting at me has been this cause that I'm running for. The screaming of the animals and the pain that they're suffering has made it much more able for me to facilitate hurting myself, if you like, to kind of neutralize it by considering the pain they're in and thinking, actually, Fiona, it's not that bad. And if you're actually diluting a little bit of their pain, probably by getting someone to even consider veganism, then that's got to be a good thing. And going back to what you were saying about what's really important in life, I'm not advertising multi-stage races, but you get to these events and you're literally thrown into a tent with probably 7 people you don't know. And you have to learn to get along. And you might be from all sorts of different backgrounds with different aspirations towards a race. Some people might be looking to play, some people might just be looking to walk around, but you have to learn to work together. And rather than focus and always identify your differences, work on your similarities. And you realise actually you're all not that different. And I know I was in the Atacama Desert one year, and I said to somebody, wouldn't it do world leaders good to be in this position? Take away all the bravado, the aids, the bullshit. Just have to learn to work together and realize that actually we're all just flesh and blood. We're all pretty much the same. And the same things actually really, when it's stripped back, matter to us all. And that we're just identical. If you could, like somebody might have a painkiller to swap for a boiled sweet, and it seems like you've got everything.
Work together.
Work together, and that's something we don't seem to have the ability to do. We almost like, especially with the environment of very often with social media, it's kind of it's like this tyrannous, toxic kind of where people want to kind of deflect their own misery by causing misery for others. It seems very, very unnatural. And I think we celebrate and unify is what we should be doing. And if we can't do that, we don't seem to have much hope.
Exactly. And that's where it needs to go. That's why we have to keep trying to push.
People have obviously got a lot of energy. But energy, let's create that energy for the positive rather than the negative all the time. And rather than, sort of placating ourselves and our own shortcomings by finding shortcomings within others.
And so we go back into love thing, like love against powerful energy. So we work out of compassion, we lead with the right example, we lead with wanting to actually genuinely help others, not expecting things back. Like it's such a different world. We work as units, we work in unison.
But you are getting things back, and that's what people. I'm not a saint, you know what I mean? But it's the currency of which you get.
Exactly.
Can't the currency just be, rather than something material? Can't it just be genuine self-fulfillment through doing something positive?
And the satisfaction in knowing that you made a difference, like that lady you ran past and waved, like that's so enriching for you to actually feel that. Or if I get a message from someone saying something I said or did or work with them, help them, that's worth more to me than getting $1 million in the bank. Like message where you made a difference, it's worth more than anything.
And
to change that way, the world needs to start moving more and more that way.
The currency needs to change.
That's a great way of putting it, the currency. I like that. That's a great way of putting it.
Percy thought of that.
Oh, was that his brainwave as well? He's so intelligent.
He's just like a guru. He's like,
exactly, like Yoda or something. So for the last couple of minutes, Fiona, just share people again, what's next for Fiona? What are you doing? What things you want people to be aware of that you're doing? Tell people where to contact you more, any way they can be of help. Share some of that information, because that's really important.
What I'm doing, I'm trying to do many things, I suppose. Keeping positive, obviously keep running the sanctuary. People can find the sanctuary at Tower Hill Stables. If you search online, Tower Hill Stables and Instagram or Facebook. I'm not very good with all the handles and things.
I'll be putting up links for everything anyway in the show notes.
Regarding myself, I've been asked a lot to kind of share with people what I actually do with my training. So I've started a little blog showing people daily what I do training, and then after a week of doing it, we're going to discuss it and hopefully help others achieve their goals. A lot of people just think that they haven't got time to fit in. They want to move up to the next level, they haven't got time to fit it in, or they don't physically know how to do that. A lot of people encounter problems and they think they're the only person with that problem, and then they realize, no, actually we've all got it. So I'm trying to share that. I've also got my own race, the second edition of the Running for Good Ultra, which is going to be out in October. We ran the race last year. It's a race specifically, it's going to be carbon neutral. It's specifically designed, it's in Morocco, to highlight issues such as desertification within the actual literally hotbed of desertification. It's held in Zagora, and people have been displaced in the Sahara Desert because literally it's just getting too hot and there's no water there to live. Also things like the rubbish that's been dumped in the desert. We want to highlight all these climate issues, because I think that if you realize that veganism isn't just about what you eat on your plate, it's about the way you live your life. It's about compassion, it's about empathy, and that comes into empathetic for your environment as well. So we're going to be talking about just lots of things. That's the race is designed to raise awareness, but it's not just veganism. I've got a place in the London Marathon, which I don't know whether I'll do this year, because my heart is not in road running anymore. It's in these kind of races that make a difference. I've always been creative with my running, and after I stopped road running so much, I was just looking at alternatives to promote what I believe in. And I think now more than ever, I just want to promote the whole concept of veganism, not just the animal part of it, but the way that unfair distribution of wealth, global wealth, and this idea that for others to have more, certainly in the Western world, we've got to accept and embrace the idea of having less.
Totally.
That's very, very important,
because we far more than we even need. That's the crazy thing about it. Like, there should be these injustices and inequalities shouldn't exist. There is no excuse anymore for them. No excuse.
There isn't. I mean, and I think that's where you can only do what you can do through the forums and the platforms that you know about. We know about running, so we're doing it through an ultra stage race. But when you think about it, you've got this tiny little backpack, 20 kilos. You've got all your world's belongings for a whole week, food, everything you need, medication, your sleeping bag, everything on the back and you're carrying it for a whole week, doing like 250 kilometers, and you're doing it on so little. It's got to be that absolute accentuation of that, you don't need all the things that you believe you need. If I can do this on this limited amount, that's got to be a positive endorsement of that kind of mantra. So yeah, I'm just keeping myself jolly busy along the way, keeping myself mind, because I think well-being is not just about physical well-being, it's about mental well-being, which is very, very important at the moment. And I think it's been slightly overlooked. And yeah, trying to help others do the same. I do truly believe that one of the most liberating things and the best things you can do is get out there in nature, put your phone down, just forget it, go out there. I mean, I go out running, I see younger people, on the seawall, they'll be it's beautiful. You've got swans, you've got endless wildlife, muntjacs, God knows what else, and they'll be walking along like this.
Totally.
Drop it and just look at the beauty around you. Don't
listen to the birds, listen to the birds.
The reality of the beauty rather than this on a screen beauty. Just staying positive. That's all we all can do. Be positive together to make positive change.
It's like that getting out nature. Like nature is medicine. And it's so important to go out and embrace that and take it on board and feed your soul. Really, I think mental well-being through sport as well is very, very important. It's not just being out there going through the motions, it's having a reason to be out there and a reason. And it was like when I was really, really lucky I was invited to the Amsterdam Marathon, because when I started running, I will just say, we were so poor that I never had any money for running, because I was literally took my vest into my pants and off I went down the road with my pants on. And then 1 minute you're doing that, next minute you've got Jos Hermans writing to you, the organizer and Haile Gebrselassie manager of the Amsterdam Marathon, saying, hey Fiona, come to the Amsterdam Marathon, we'll pay your expenses, pay your flights, and you can run on the elite staff. Absolutely amazing. And on the Friday night that I arrived there, I was like starstruck. I mean, like Haile Gebrselassie. And he actually invited me to spend the evening with him. He was waiting for a journalist to come and interview him. And he said so many things that were absolutely invaluable, just little crumbs of wisdom, running wisdom. But he also said that the reason he was continuing on and moving up to the marathon is not so much because he needed to, it's because other people needed him to, and that need of his country to further his country for the employment he was creating was driving him on, and he felt that that's what gave him that extra incentive to do the double sessions, to be away from his family, to train in Holland. That's what gave him that extra incentive to do it for others. And I think it's a great gift, rather than just thinking, I want a medal or I want a time. That's a lesson. That's a lesson for all of us, again, on how to live again in happiness. That he's truly feeling happy with himself, and the fact he's doing that, just like the way you do your sanctuary, that actually is happiness. Come back to, again, society and what it tells us happiness is and success is. That's not what it is at all. It's again what's within you, what's the purpose, mission you need to serve. And then
very often though, unfortunately, happiness in the way that we're sold it has a commercial and
it's commodity.
You've got to buy something to be happy. And when you're selling a message that actually you've got to reject that to be happy, that's not so popular a message, but it doesn't mean to say that it's not a true one.
Exactly. And you're being true to yourself, which, as we've said many times, that's the most important thing.
That's all you can be. Because at the end of the day, you can't lie to yourself.
Exactly.
You can to a certain extent, but deep down, no, you can't.
Yeah, if you look yourself in the mirror.
It's holding up the mirror of truth and looking back and see the real reflection rather than the fantasy one.
Exactly.
There we go back to the Snow Queen. Yeah.
Exactly. Fiona, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. It's been amazing having you on the Mind Body Health podcast. Again, so much value and so much inspiration. And as always, just love your humbleness and your modesty. Again, that, as I said earlier, that's definitely your superpower. So you're doing amazing things. Keep it going. Keep, again, being an inspiration in terms of being a role model and what you're doing and being a good, compassionate human. And again, that's the important word again, human. And just huge respect to you always.
Thank you so much. And love to you and all your listeners.
Yeah. And Percy, of course, as well.
Who couldn't be humble living with him? I mean, just realise how kind of inadequate you are when you live with a little girl like that.
Yeah, he keeps you grounded.
He does, yeah.
So thanks so much for being on, guys. Make sure you give us feedback, leave any ratings and reviews on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, or any other podcasting platforms, or YouTube. Please share this out. To remember, these are kind of messages that need to get out to people. People need to have hope. People need to have a bit of inspiration. This could just be the little spark that makes people make positive changes in their life. That's what people like Fiona are here for. We're trying to make a positive difference in people's lives. So have a good one. Share it out there. Enjoy, and talk to you in the next episode.